I think we now have confirmation about what we spoke of in yesterday's video. In case anybody hasn't seen it, we talked about the issue with the USS Fitzgerald specifically and the very strange movements of other ships in the region. The Wanhai 266, of course, the ACX Crystal that ended up allegedly colliding with the Fitzgerald, and another ship called the Baichi Bridge. Now, after I posted yesterday's video, I just wanted to show you this, to show you I'm not kidding. This posted yesterday, USNI, January 3, 224. Now, I'm just going to show you my page. This was yesterday's video. I posted this 1 minute before this USNI article came out, and I found it very telling. I don't think that they did it based on my video. I'm just saying that if I had waited another 15 minutes, I probably would have included this in yesterday's video. Now, this is a different area of the world, but something in this video got me thinking. I had made the allegation that perhaps the Fitzgerald and the Crystal and these ships were racing toward a point down there where where that cable made that 190 to 240 bend. And there might have been one of these unmanned, remotely operated vehicles. Perhaps it had malfunctioned, perhaps it had surfaced, and they were attempting to retrieve it. And maybe the Baichi Bridge, because it was just sitting there doing nothing and turned off its AIS, maybe it had lost, contact, or the thing was just floating on the surface, basically, was the point that I was trying to make, and they were attempting to retrieve it, and the Crystal hit the Fitz to basically warn her off of it. Now, I have tabs up in today's video to show you this has happened before. So this article here, what I wanted to cover, this is USNI, is down here, and you can read through this for yourself. USNI, Houthi rebels find likely U.S. Navy unmanned underwater vehicle. But if you go down here to the bottom, it talks about this thing they recovered as being it might be the most advanced UUV deployed. Okay, and that's saying something. Some of these UUVs are incredibly advanced. Now down here, and it says typically the most common Navy use for a REMUS 600 are mine countermeasures and intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance, and target acquisition. That's interesting. Off the coast of Yemen. Now it says here, once underway, he said REMUS has about 20 hours of operational use before it runs out of power and needs to be recovered. Getting your guesses, the UUV surfaced when its mission ended and was found by the Houthis before it could be recovered. In the future, he suspects such incidents will become more common as more unmanned underwater vehicles are launched near busy waterways. Now, let's remember that, and let's look at that in context of what we talked about yesterday. When we went to this issue here, this was the Fitzgerald, and this is the track of the Crystal. Now remember, we had two ships. We had the Wanhai 266 and the Crystal coming up to this point running parallel. Excuse me. And then we saw this collision location, this 130 collision location. And then we saw the ship come down. Up here was anchored the Baichi Bridge. As soon as this ship went by, it turned off its AIS. It does this thing coming back. It comes around here and it starts to meander around looking, and then all of a sudden it stops. And then it makes a quick, and maybe I'll just play it forward so we can see it. I have this at 2x, I think. And it shows clearly what was going on. And of course it won't play for me. There we go. And just as this meandering, looking around kind of thing, it slows down to almost a dead crawl at like 0.5 knots. And then all of a sudden does this little backup thing and then just motors out of the region. And then, like I said before, instead of going on the track that it allegedly was going, it swings out the other side of this island and loiters out there. And we, of course, don't have a track for that because they cut off the track here in about 6 seconds. But it loiters out there for about 5 hours based on the time that it arrived in Tokyo. So more than likely, that's what was going on here. And the website that I said you should go to yesterday actually has an article covering this. Now, this is High Sutton, www.highsutton.com. We talked about this, and there is something I wanted to show you under this shallow water threat. And this basically talks about the Russians' ability to do this and their desire to do it and their planning to do it. In hybrid warfare, naval special forces, Spetsnaz, divers could be used to cut, let me say this again. Divers could be employed to cut cables. These would operate from civilian vessels to aid cover and deniability or conventional submarines. I think that's key. I think that's very, very key here. That this is being covered on this channel, on this website, and that's how they would operate. That makes perfect sense for what we saw. Now, there was another article that came up that I thought was very, very strange. It had to do with something that happened very, very late in 2016. Real quick, let me do this first. The article that talked about, that I just went to, that they captured, the Houthis captured a U.S. Unmanned drone, is here off the coast of Yemen. Now, I had made also the allegation that if these were going to be employed, they would be employed in areas where you could get the most bang for your buck. And if you look at this area, there are 14 different cables that come right through this little tiny neck, this little tiny inlet here, in between these two. It's the canal. I'm not sure what this is called, which canal this is, but you can see how dense the population of cables is here. And when you zoom out, you can see where all these cables go. There's probably a cable here that goes between just about anywhere you would want in Africa, Europe, Middle East, Asia. If there were going to be a place to operate one of these underwater drones to either tap or cut a cable, this would be the place to do it. Now, as promised, when I was reading through this article, the other one on USNI, this popped up. And this goes all the way back to December 18th of 2016. It says, China promises to return snatched unmanned Navy glider. Now, this is an underwater glider. And this is the U.S. Navy vessel that we have called the USNS Bowditch. And this is basically a U.S. Navy version of the Yantar class vessel that we talked about yesterday. And it has made quite a little name for itself. Reading through this article here, the ship was, speaking of the Bowditch, had 2 of these out and was being tailed by a Chinese ship. And this Chinese ship, when they saw this thing surface, it ran over and grabbed it, even though it says U.S. Navy, please leave in the water. So when you read through this, there was something down here I wanted to cover. And this we're going to go to this USNS Bowditch and its history. It says, Bowditch was preparing to pick up both of the gliders when the Daeling 3 that had been tailing the American ship launched a small boat and grabbed one of the gliders and took it back to the ship. The gliders are labeled clearly U.S. Navy property. One naval analyst told USNI News that the move from Beijing could be signaling to the incoming administration. China could very well be trying to lay the groundwork with the new administration to make the U.S. look weak in the region and demonstrate its own strength to the world, all while attempting to gain valuable intelligence through seizure of a U.S. UUV. And then there, of course, is the quote from the current administrator. Anyway, so I looked up the USNS Bowditch, Pathfinder-class survey ship. Now listen to this. On 24 March 2001, Bowditch encountered a PLA Navy Zhanghu 3, which is a frigate, which came within 100 meters while operating in the Yellow Sea near South Korea and was forced to leave. Bowditch later returned with an armed escort. In March 2001, India protested Bowditch's activities after discovering her operating around 30 nautical miles from the Nicobar Islands. To October same year, South Korea protested Bowditch's activities, discovering her operating 26 miles off the South Korean coast. 24 September 2002, Bowditch was harassed by Chinese patrol boats and aircraft and forced to leave while operating in the Yellow Sea. In May 2003, Bowditch was bumped by a Chinese fishing vessel and suffered damage. Now let's look at the issue here with the Lake Champlain. Now this was a while back. But it looks like the Chinese have come up to speed on what maybe the U.S. has been doing for a good long time. It's an American Littoral Battlespace Sensing ship. That's, I guess, what it's called. And it has these underwater gliders. And, of course, the article we just talked about here, Chinese Navy, 15 December 2016, resulting in formal diplomatic protest after they seized that thing. So I think we have confirmation of what we talked about yesterday, that this probably was the issue last summer. Now, in case anybody's wondering where this all happened with the boatage, it was here. The article says, or not the boatage, I'm sorry, the boatage. It was 50 miles. It says northeast, but it's actually northwest. This was the 2016 issue, where they seized the glider. So, and we've already established there's a cable out here. And we did that in not the last video, but the video before. So, anyways, some very telling information about the issue with the USS Fitzgerald. And now we have a tie to something going on with the USS Lake Champlain, the Chinese fishing vessel, allegedly. If you go back to that article with from High Sutton, and I don't know where it exactly is in the article, but it talks about fishing vessels. In fact, it does down here, I think. I'll find it. Yeah. During operations, the host submarine and nuclear deepwater station would be vulnerable to trawler nets. Generally, nuclear powered submarines are likely to do more damage to the trawlers than themselves, but it's a serious concern to both parties, and the Russian submarines would be less able to evade. One of these little tiny fishing vessels could drop one of these huge nets over one of these UUVs and just basically screw up its activities, ruin its day. So, anyway, 12 minutes, that's about what we usually stop at. Like, share, subscribe, folks. Thank you so much for the support. I really appreciate it, and we'll see you in the comments. Have a great day.